Hello, everyone, and welcome to the My MMA News Bellator 244 preview show. I'm Connor Northrup, and I'm also joined by John Eric Poli. What's going on, John?
What's going on, Connor? Great to be here, and it's another exciting week for us. I know we have UFC fights on Saturday, but we start that all off with Bellator on Friday, and looking forward to it. We just got done doing media day yesterday, and that was a lot of fun. So, hey, we're less than 24 hours away, or about 24 hours away from the fight now. So, should be a lot of fun coming our way in the next couple hours.
Absolutely, and just to kind of go off what you said too, for anyone interested, me and John will be covering the fight tomorrow, so you get all that coverage at MyMNews.com, and also on that site you can check out all our stuff from yesterday. We did, I think, everybody in the main card, I think so, and I think we both talked at least one half of each fight, except for I think you talked to both guys from the Nelson Moldavsky fight, and then I talked to both guys in the main event with Nemkov and Bader. But yeah, anybody interested in that, you go to MyMNews.com and check all that, past interviews, and then the post-fight scrums tomorrow as well. And I think we'll probably just do mostly main card, maybe some of the prelims like the last time. But one thing that I want to just kind of open up the show with too is the fact that I think when I first heard about this card, I'm not gonna lie, like my excitement level was not like through the roof for this card. I wasn't like super entertained by it. Where the last card, I think I was like a lot more excited about, and also the way that I think that has something to do with it too, because I felt that last fight ended like so, it just ended well. Like, you had the thing with Chandler, it was like his last fight on his contract. He gets a knockout over Henderson, who hasn't been, not even knocked out, finished in 6 years. And Bellator was obviously a star. And like you had the Sabah Hamazi with like Lebanon, and he, dedicated his fight to that. And I kind of got an upset over Curtis Millender too. So I thought there was like so many takeaways from that I think that was the reason why I almost was like, with this card, I was like, oh, okay, like we'll see how it goes. I don't know how you felt about it.
Yeah, this is a very sneaky card, actually, because I know you mentioned the last card, but how about even the one before that, too, with Sergio Pettis getting a big win there in a title elimination fight, and that card had a lot of good fights on it, as well. And then, like you said, this one, like, we knew Bader was coming back, but it was like, yeah, well, other than that, though, what's kind of going on? Then all of a sudden you look, it's like, oh, Julia Budd's on the card. Longtime champ there for Bellator, just obviously lost her belt to Chris Cyborg, but still, huge matchup there. Big country, fan favorite. He's on the card. And then, of course, then you have John Salter there, who's probably going to be getting a title fight, most likely, if he gets a win, who's, quietly won 9 of his last 10 there. Of course, he had the loss to Lovato Jr. in the mix there. But still, all of a sudden, you have like these guys in the main card, and it's like, that's actually a very good main card. That's a solid main card for Bellator there. So, yeah, like you said, it kind of got overshadowed a little bit with everything that happened in the last one. But, yeah, talk about it. We'll call it a shady card. Really snuck up on everybody about just how good and how talented this card is.
Yeah, I'm actually like really looking forward to the main event too. I think there's like a lot of different storylines there, but we're obviously gonna get into that, so we'll get started here. First fight of the night, it's Middleweights John Salter versus Andrew Cappell. And yesterday, during the the pre-fight media day, Cappell, they actually said his name wrong, so he corrected them that. So I want to make sure I got that right. But Cappell's not a guy I knew tons about coming into this, but I like to get your opinion, and then I'll give mine after that.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on a little bit before when you look at it, like John Salter's coming into this 9 to 10 fight. So that's obviously the big storyline here. It's not a surprise. It's if Salter wins, he fights for the belt. And that's, nothing that we have to go ahead and beat a dead horse with, because that's how it is. He even admitted himself. He's like, yeah, most likely I win this fight. I'm probably next. They might maybe do Gegard Mousasi, Douglas Lima, maybe for the belt. He said that's a possibility in the future, but he's definitely, worst case scenario, they'd have those two fight and he would get the winner. So if you're Cappell right now, you got a great chance to play spoiler. And, like you said, and I was the same way, you didn't know a lot about him coming into this fight, but if he goes ahead and gets the win, you're going to know a lot about him afterwards.
Well, I think that's why this is exciting, because you said it perfectly. He's going to play spoiler, and what did he play his last fight? I mean, he retired King Mo. And he was actually like very modest yesterday too. He's like, I don't think I retired King Mo, because he's like, I think King Mo, he's like, win or lose, that was probably gonna be his last fight. But I don't know. I think there's some truth to that statement as far as retiring him. But I mean, Cappell looked great in that fight, and I was wondering too, because you talk about how it seems like kind of the narrative here is that if Salter wins, he gets a title shot. Do you feel like that's the same for if Cappell wins?
Yeah, it's interesting. See, what makes Bellator tough is you don't really know the ranking system that they have going on. They kind of
Yeah.
keep that behind closed doors. But I mean, I would approach it that way. I mean, if Salter's the one that's saying, "Hey, I'm next," worst case scenario is that Lima and Masasi fight, and then I get the winner of that one. Why is that not going to be the same for Cappell? Especially, like you said, that King Mo win was definitely a big win. Whether King Mo was at the end of his career or not, it was still a huge win. So, yeah, I like to view this as a little title elimination fight. Of course, Scott Coker hasn't come out and said that, or anybody from Bellator hasn't come out and said that. But, I mean, I would think I'm okay with this being a title elimination fight. You will not see me complain about that whatsoever.
Yeah. One thing I'm interested with Cappell too, and he mentioned it yesterday, but he's actually with Team Elevation now in Colorado. So that's a change he made in the last year. So I'm almost positive that he wasn't with that gym when he actually knocked out King Mo. So I think that's like another thing too, because I think Salter, he comes from like a really Jim O down, I think I want to say South Carolina, maybe North Carolina. I think it's South Carolina. But there's a lot of good guys coming out of there too, and they have a lot of fights this weekend. I think I was telling you that the other day as well, off the air. But yeah, this is a fight that I'm definitely looking forward to. And so let's go into our picks here. Who do you got?
Yeah, well, it's hard to bet against Salter here. It really is, only because of the fact that he's won 9 of 10, and his only loss in that stretch was to Lovato, who obviously went on, beat Masasi, claimed the belt. I know he vacated it there, but when you're looking at a guy with that type of resume and that type of run, it's hard to go against him. That's nothing taking away anything from Cappell. I think Cappell is very talented. If he won the fight, I wouldn't be saying that I was super shocked by it. But in terms of a prediction, I mean, it's just so hard to go against Salter right now. So I'm going to take him. If we have to pick the way, if you want me to pick the way of method, I'm going to go probably by decision. I think it's probably a safe bet. Definitely in a 3-round fight, 2 to boot.
I was actually that was gonna be my follow-up, because I was gonna say, do you see this going 3 rounds? Because I don't know if I do, because if you look at their records on paper, they both have quite a number of finishes.
Yeah, well, let's see it, man. Finishes are always good, but how many times have we seen though, time and time again, Rick, up these two? The heavyweight division always puts an asterisk on it. But usually, a lot of times you have 2 guys that are such good finishers. A lot of times they find ways to, whatever the one was good at doing before, somebody has a counter for that, and we see decisions. And you're like, how the hell we get a decision out of this fight? So, I'm still gonna go by decision, just because. Why not be different? Like, I mean, we just saw DC and Cormier last week too, who thought that was gonna go to a decision.
True. Good point. And so I think for me, it's kind of like I think what you said. It's hard to go against a guy like Salter. But one thing that's interesting is he actually, all 3 of his losses come by submission, but he has a lot of wins by submission. So I'm actually going to go Salter, but by submitting Cappell too, because I think Cappell has a few losses, and I think 2 of them are by submission. So I think it's going to be interesting play out too. And like you said too, I think the implications of whoever wins. That's going to obviously have a pretty, deep storyline as well. So let's move on to the heavyweights here. We kind of talked about Roy Nelson earlier, but Roy Nelson, Big Country, Valentin Moldavsky. Who do you got?
Yo, Moldavsky's on a roll right now. Trying to think at the top of my head, 6 wins in a row. Am I right on that? Is it 6 in a row?
I think so. I can double check that.
I think it is. Go. Oh, you
no.
No.
He's got 4 straight.
4 in a row. 4 in a row. I'm sorry, I gave him 2 extra ones in the mix there. Pardon me. So anyway, but yeah, no, he's on a great stretch. Like I said, 4 in a row. Where meanwhile, looking at Big Country, he's lost 4 in a row. And I think Big Country, the end is sort of near here. And he was asked about that yesterday at Media Day. If nobody watched any of the interviews there, I can just sum it up briefly for you. Big Country said, like, yeah, if I'm starting to get knocked around, I'll probably hang it up. But as long as I'm competitive, I have no problem with losing and keep going out there. So I think he knows that, like, he needs to go out there and he needs to perform well and keep this competitive at least. So yeah, I think you have right now, you're kind of looking at the guy that's on his way up, rising contender, versus the guy that's on the downslope of his career towards the end. That's the way I view this fight.
Yeah, because Nelson, I don't think he's won since I think it was like September 2017. So obviously it's been a while. I think it's 4 straight losses for him, and last 2 were by decision. And if you look at Moldavsky, like, this fight, I don't think it's going to be exciting at all. I think, like, this, honestly, on paper, this is one of the ones I was probably maybe the least excited about. Just because I just feel like it's going to go Moldavsky's way, and I think Moldavsky's way is just kind of grind you out. I think he's going to take him down and just kind of, outlast them that way. And I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but so who are you going with this one?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm definitely going with Podolski, and I see that too. It's mostly going to be a grinded out wrestling type of a decision. The only thing that I think could be interesting is Big Country has no problem with grappling with guys, looking for takedowns and stuff as well. So, maybe Big Country did he sneak a takedown of his own in? Can he stuff one of them? Something along those types of lines. But most likely, I think that that Podolski's going to get it. And what a surprise too with that Sambo background. When Khabib Nurmagomedov was on, obviously still on the run that he's on now, that was the first time I ever heard of Sambo ever. And now here it is, somebody else from Russia that's a great wrestler, good with the Sambo. So it just seems that Sambo is the way to go right now.
Yeah. And I think I'm also going to go Podolski on this one. I would say it's probably a unanimous decision as well. I know that wasn't a huge build-up to that one, but I just felt like that one was kind of simple. But going into the co-main event, too, and the only person to miss weight, Jessie Mealy, taking on former champion and Julia Budd. Budd, obviously, she's coming off that loss to Cyborg, so it's going to be interesting to see how she kind of responds to that. And it's kind of funny, too, because she's obviously coming off a loss after reigning for so long, where I feel like Mealy, she's coming off one of her biggest wins of her career. She beat Toledo Nogueira in her last Bellator fight, which, again, I think she was the underdog, and she kind of talked about that yesterday, too, that she's kind of used to that underdog status, at this time. What's your, kind of take on this one?
Yeah, well, I mean, first off, when I look at this, I'm looking at Mealy missing weight there. That's a big thing there, because whenever fighters miss weight, you always have to think, are they hurt? Did something happen? Were they not mentally tough during camp that they would come in here and miss weight? Because you're signing a contract agreement to, meet set upon, weight. But obviously, I know right now things are still a little bit crazy. There's still a lot of short notice fights. These are big girls that have to cut a lot of weight. Maybe that's also a factor too. But that missed weight kind of has me a little bit worried about her there. And then, like you said, Bud was on such a great run. I think this is her first loss since 2011. So, yeah, how did she come back mentally? I could tell you from interviewing her yesterday in her media day, she's answered all the questions correctly so far. Now, whether, we have to actually see her go out there and execute it, but she seems like she's still in good spirits. She still has her eye on the prize of getting that rematch with Cyborg, and she's willing to do whatever it takes to get to that point. So, I think that Bud's in the right spot mentally. At least she answered those questions yesterday as far as I was able to tell. But you spoke to Mealy. Did she give you any type of indication that anything that stood out to you?
Not really, no. And no one was really asking her about her weight or anything like that. One thing I thought was interesting, and this has kind of nothing to do with the fight, but I think it's just worth mentioning. Her nickname's the Widowmaker, and she actually was saying that the reason she got it was because she's in the gym, she would do these kind of get people trapped in these crazy things. And I was like, oh, it's your typical nickname. But then she went into that. It actually had more to do with a lot of her family members have had Widowmaker heart attacks, which are very hard to survive, and all of them have survived them. And so that's kind of the reasons why she had it too, which I thought was just kind of almost like I don't know if it's a common nickname, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. But as far as the actual fight, I with this one too. I think even if she didn't, I do agree with you where I think missing the weight that could play a factor. But I think even going into this one, I was always leaning more towards Bud, just because she does have that experience too. And I think the one thing I think about Bud too is I'm like, well, she is 37. But Mealy's 35. I don't think there's a huge difference there as far as the age thing, which I think is another thing about this Bellator card, and any Bellator card really. Even in a lot of these main cards, you always have these kind of older guys. Because the average age of this main card, it's got to be around 35 years old or something. Because even those first two middleweights too are older, and I'm not sure what Podolski is, but Nelson's up there as well. But I'm leaning towards more Bud this way. I just think she's more experienced. She's faced those tougher. I get that Jessie's coming off that pretty big win over Nogueira, but I don't know. I just don't see Bud kind of losing this one. Who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm going with Bud as well, just mainly because of the fact, like I said, when I talked to her yesterday, it seemed that she was mentally prepared. And when you said there, too, about the age thing, too, with Bud being 37, I asked her, I was like, we don't see fighters normally sticking around into their late 30s, especially at the high of, that high of a level that you're fighting at right now. What's the secret to the longevity? And she has said she keeps herself active. She keeps herself busy. She's always in the gym. She's taking care of her body all the time. She's not allowing herself to have these big gaps in between camps where she can be taking time off and eating bad. And she said, quite frankly, she's never felt better in her whole entire life. And in that loss to Cyborg, I mean, it was a very competitive fight. I know she, Cyborg ended up stopping in the 4th round, but by no means should she hang her head, low by that. She definitely showed that she's one of, if not, the second best or third best, if you want to count Amanda Nunes. We're going to pound for pound throughout all systems, you know what I mean? But she's right up there. She's one of the best featherweights in the world for a reason. And I like Bud to not only win, but get the finish, because yesterday on her media day, that was another thing that she mentioned too. They were like, you're always finishing fights. Do you see yourself going out there and doing that this way? She goes, I'm looking forward to it all the time. I'm going to go out there. I don't care if it's the 1st round, the 2nd round, the 3rd round. I will always look for a finish no matter what round it is. So I'm going to go with Bud by a stoppage as well.
Do you think it's like a submission, or do you think it's like TKO stoppage?
Oh, good question. Yeah, I'm going to go with the TKO.
Yeah.
But Bud has a lot of power in those hands. She's a big girl for that weight class.
Yeah, I hate the copycat, but that's kind of like where I was leaning too. Just another thing too, like you were asking me about, like what Mealy said too, like there's not much that like really stood out. Like that Widowmaker thing stood out because I think part of it was there wasn't really she wasn't really selling me, and obviously too, maybe she's holding it close to the vest, doesn't want to give a lot away. I totally get that as well, but it just didn't. It just seemed like she's kind of almost accepted this underdog role. And it's almost like, she see what she can get out of it. But we'll see, And another thing, too, it's like we know so much about a person like Julia Budd just because of her status with Bellator and everything like that and who she's fought in the past. Where with Mealy, we don't know that much about either. So it could be like one of those situations, too, where we were talking about earlier where you have a guy like King Mo versus a guy like Cappell, which a lot of people don't know about, but you start to, kind of recognize the name when they beat a guy like that or a girl like that. But and then just going. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. Proceed, move along. I was gonna pretty much. I was gonna tell you that I agreed. So there you go. I agree.
Breaking news. But you were talking about Julia Budd and how she's kind of adapted with getting older stuff, and that goes into our next guy, Ryan Bader. I feel like he's done that as well. He seems like a guy who's almost gotten better with age. I mean, he's looked pretty good in his last couple fights. Obviously, coming off that controversial eye poke, that is what it is. But I think out of all the fights on this card, I think this one probably has the most storylines. I just think because, one, there's a clear age gap here. Bader's, I think, 37, and Nemkov's 28. So two guys are probably at little different stages in their career as well. And Nemkov, too, I feel like a lot of people are kind of saying, oh, well, Bader's so much more experienced. And I agree. I think he is. But if you look at Nemkov's 4 fights in Bellator, they were all against, pretty decent competition. He's already faced 2 former champions. He's faced, Phil Davis is one of those guys. But then he's also had a Strikeforce veteran as well. So I don't think he definitely hasn't had an easy road here. And I think another thing, too, is Bader, when you get older, obviously he made that weight, but you wonder how making the weight, too, affects him because he's 37. And I know yesterday I did ask him about that, and he said that, like, similar to, like, your Julia Budd question and answer, just pretty much that he's adjusted to it. He's eating a little cleaner, similar to, like, what Chris Weidman said before his last fight as well. But Bader, you wonder how that's going to impact him, too, because he hasn't made that cut in almost 3 years either. So you wonder what kind of aftermath of that, too. What could that do to him, his performance-wise? But then I think another storyline out of this, too, and I'm going to let you go so I don't steal all the thunder here, John. But with Nemkov is he's never been in a 5-round fight. And I was looking yesterday. He's actually only been to 2 decisions his entire career. So he's only gone the full 15 minutes twice, and he actually split those. He lost one and won one. So I think that's going to be I think there's a lot of storylines here.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's so hard to pick which direction to go on because I agree with that too. That's my big storyline coming to this is how's Bader going to do after dealing with that weight cut for the first time in nearly 3 years. How's he going to feel? But I think when Bader, if God forbid, or I should say, that he shouldn't say God forbid, that was a bad word to use there. But Bader, as long as he had a halfway decent weight cut, I really don't think it's going to really affect his performance because we know what he's going to do. He's going to go out there, he's going to wrestle you, he's going to try to ground and pound you. That's just his type of style, which fits really well here. It's actually a good matchup for him dealing with somebody who's never went the full 25 minutes because if he can take him to deep waters, like you were saying, it's going to make this extremely interesting. But the one thing, though, that I think really sticks out about this fight is you have the right number 1 contender here. Because a great win streak there, beat Phil Davis on his way to getting to this title fight with Ryan Bader. And look at when they stood next to each other there. Bader looks like he's the shorter man for this fight, and I know a lot of times shorter guys usually prevail, as TLP Sonnen reminds us all the time, that height advantage doesn't really play a factor in fights. But so just seeing Bader being the smaller guy at 205 pounds was a little different than what I'm used to seeing.
For sure. And I actually forgot a whole nother storyline of this is Bader beat Fedor, who's actually Fedor's protege is Nemkov. So I think that's like another interesting factor there too. But I did want to go off something you said, and I guess I'll give my pick first for this one. I'll just go into rate after this. But you mentioned about kind of Bader being able to maybe grind him out because Nemkov hasn't been to those deep waters. And I think that's where this fight does get interesting because if you look at it, Nemkov's a guy I think he has a lot of first round finishes. I think he has like 8 total first round finishes. So you think about him, he's I think likes to push the pace and things like that. And I did ask him about his how he's prepared for that yesterday, and he said that he's been going like almost 10 rounds, doing 10 rounds instead of 5 in the gym, and he's been doing elevation training, and in those 10 rounds too, he has a new guy every time. So he's getting fresh guys, and he says performance. But I just find it hard to believe that if you're doing 10 rounds, your performance has to suffer a little bit. He says his performance wasn't suffering at all. There's no way you're as fresh as a daisy in that first round and then are the same in the 10. I just can't see a world where that's possible. But maybe he has made those adjustments, but I think that's where we have to kind of look at this. I think the earlier the fight is, I think it's almost in Nemkov's favor. I think if that's where he's going to win this fight, I think, is in those, maybe that first, second round. I think if Bader can maybe survive that early storm and take this one a little later, I think the further it goes on, the more the fight's going to favor Bader in this one. So I think with this one, I think it's like what you said. I'm kind of leaning towards Bader and with that decision win too. But I also wonder, and I'm sticking with Bader. I'm going to stick with that. But one thing I do want to say is Bader as of late has been I don't want to say better because it's something that I guess he can't really help, but his chin's been holding up. But if you look early in his career too, a lot of his losses are from just getting, rocked. And like one thing I'm a pretty big Bader follower, but like I remember that Glover Teixeira fight way back when. I think that was like in 2013 where, he was kind of winning that fight and then just got caught. And, we've seen that with Lyoto Machida caught him as well, and Anthony Johnson too. But I am going with Bader. I think his chin will hold up. And I think he just has to survive that early storm, and I think he'll be on to a unanimous decision win and his first light heavyweight win in over 3 years. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going with Bader as well. It's hard to bet against him as a sitting world champion, and he's definitely probably been the best consistent fighter in Bellator over the last few years, winning championships obviously at light heavyweight and then heavyweight, winning that Grand Prix there as well. And one of the things about Bader, Took, you're saying about his chin, I think one of the things that has helped him is I think he fights smarter as he's been getting older, because looking at that Machida fight that you brought up, he kind of charged in there kind of wildly. His hands weren't up. So I feel like as he's been going on with his career, he's been fighting smarter as well. And I think going along those fight IQ lines too, I think he's going to use his wrestling and try to grind it out. And you know what? I don't know what the cardio issue is going to be like, but we know Bader can go the full 25 minutes. So I might even say that Bader gets a late stoppage. But I think this fight, Bader's going to try to get this fight into the championship rounds just to test the gas tank out.
Yeah, I see. I hate to do this, but I don't know why I said decision too. I don't think Nemkov has enough to go there. But I'm going to stick with it. I'm not going to backtrack here. But another thing too with Nemkov too, and it just kind of stood out to me too, is he has gotten finished before. It's actually Yuri Prochaska, who just had a huge UFC debut a few weeks back, and I think it might have been the last or second to last Fight Island card. But so that's another guy another factor to kind of play into the whole thing. But it's kind of boring, John. We agreed on everything. I should have went with Cappell in that first one.
Hey, look, we're betting the favorites, and that's never fun, but they're the safe bets. You know what I mean? Especially when you take a look at this card too. I think Again, we just broke everything down, but it seems like there are some mismatches there. Except for that first one. That first one should be really competitive, but Bader's just been on too good of a tear. I know there's some question marks coming into that one, but how do you bet against Ryan Bader? Over the last few years, there's been no signs to say, yes, I should bet against Ryan Bader. Julia Budd has bet, with the exception of Chris Sidebourg, has been absolutely unstoppable. And like we said, the way she's been handling herself seems like she has the her eye on the prize. And Big Country's lost 4 in a row, so to go ahead and pick Big Country on a 4-fight losing streak would be a very very gutsy move. So, this fight card especially too, it's hard to bet against hard to bet with the underdogs in this card.
Yeah, I think that first fight is definitely the biggest toss-up as far as the main card goes. Cause I could see Cappell maybe catching Salter or something like that and getting the finish there too. But like I said, I didn't want to see that one going the full 3. But all right, I mean that's pretty much it. John Salter was our first pick for the first fight against Andrew Cappell. Valentin Modovsky over Roy Nelson. Julia Budd over Jesse Mealy, and then we got Ryan Bader defending that title, light heavyweight title, first time in 3 years, against Vadim Nemkov. And John's got an important phone call here.
Yeah.
Who is it? Is that Scott Coker, or who is that?
It is. He's telling me that I did a horrible job of picking fights and that he doesn't want me covering Bellator anymore.
All right. Well, it's a somber note to end on, but it can't be as somber as you finding out about Joanna retiring, but...
Oh, that was heartbreaking. Go watch the Deepwater podcast and just watch me have my heart absolutely shattered.
But anyways, so that's it for our picks here too. What time do the fights start tomorrow? The prelims.
The main card is at 10 o'clock. So that's the big one on Paramount Network. If you tune in before, I believe I want to say, is it 6:45? Is that when coverage begins in the Bellator YouTube channel at the top of my head? But anyway, the main card will be on the main card 10 o'clock Paramount Network.
All righty. And one thing I just want to add real quick, I think that, and I just want to mention them, we won't go into it, but I actually think these prelims are probably the best prelims that Bellator has had since coming back. I mean, Yaroslav Amosov, I can't believe that he's not on the main card. I mean, this guy just headlined the last fight he had against Ed Ruth, and so now he's on the prelims. Just kind of shocks me, and not even feature prelims because Adam Piccolotti and Sydney Outlaw are going to do that in I believe that's a lightweight bout too. And I think that's interesting about too, because I think both guys are kind of the verge of getting in that mix. Plus Eric Perez, former UFC guy, bantamweight going against Josh Hill, another guy. I believe Josh Hill was on the Ultimate Fighter as well. So a lot of you guys on this bout card. Chris Gonzalez is another one that kind of comes to my head. But a lot of stuff to look forward to. Anything else, John, before I let you go?
No, man, I'm just really looking forward to tomorrow night there. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to doing the coverage with you as well. So just want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, make sure you're checking out My MMA News. We'll have some stories coming out, and especially the full fight media day, the full fight post-fight interviews. We'll have those out as well. We'll be begging them out all night. It's going to be a long, busy night for us, but I'm looking forward to doing it. So just want to remind everybody to check that out tomorrow.
All righty. All right, John, thanks for joining me. And, guys, this was the Miami News Bellator 244 preview. Enjoy the fights tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll see you for Bellator 245.